This is Technology for Humans, tech through the eyes of its leaders. Produced by Reinteractive, a Ruby on Rails development company. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome. Today we're joined by Chris Oliver. Chris will be a very familiar name to many people listening to this podcast. And if you haven't heard his name before, then I'm going to introduce you to him right now. No, I'm going to introduce him to you. Is that what I said? Chris has done and is doing many things in the Rails ecosystem. And we're probably going to touch on many of those today in the podcast. But let me start by saying you run a number of businesses, including Hatchbox, which is a platform for hosting Rails and other applications. You deliver a podcast called Remote Ruby, which has been going for some years. You write Rails tutorials for people and teams running Rails in their businesses. You have written and maintain a number of Ruby gems, which are used extensively by the community. You have been in the past a Rails Luminary. Well, I suppose you still are a Rails Luminary. I don't think you lose the title from year to year. And you are a husband and a father. Did I leave anything out, Chris?
Maybe, probably. It's too long of a list.
You do some consulting work as well as a Rails dev. Is that right?
I have.
Okay.
Don't really anymore, thankfully. Yeah, it wasn't my favorite thing. You know, there'd be some projects that we'd work on that would just get thrown away or whatever. And I was always like, that always frustrated me, which led me to building my own products where I was like, at least my work won't go to waste then.
Yeah, right. That's an interesting thing, actually. Yeah, I've had that situation where you put months of work into a project, hand it over to the client, and the client says, I'm not quite ready to launch this yet, and never eventuates. Well, you spent a lot of money on that.
Yeah, we had a lot of that because I worked for a little consulting company and did some freelancing myself, and it was like a lot of our work was for marketing agencies, and we'd put together like an app for like a football promotion or something like for the Super Bowl, and it would be like used for a week and then thrown away. It was like, okay, well, you're not even going to use it next year for the next Super Bowl. Nope. Like, wow. Okay. So I always found it more fulfilling personally to work on stuff that I could do for years as opposed to like a bunch of quick short things or whatever. And that was just our tendency to have those kind of products to build for people. So yeah. You know.
Tell me, Chris, out of that list that I just read out, what's your favorite? What do you like the most?
Oh, I feel like it's changed over time. Like at the beginning, I was really into open source because that was the first experience that. So when I was in high school, I had dial-up and I wanted to use Linux, and so I've got my mom just gave me an old bag of stuff of mine from their house, and it's like an Ubuntu 7.04 CD-ROM or whatever. And I got really into programming around that time and realized, like, you know what? I have a flash drive and school has high-speed internet, so maybe I could build something to download the Ubuntu packages onto a flash drive so I can install them at home offline. Because it would take literally all night to download some stuff on dial-up. Yeah. And then you'd wake up and like somebody picked up the phone and like got disconnected or whatever.
Start again.
And then I'd get in trouble for like, you're still using the phone line. So that was fun because it got me into, I wanted to build software for people, and so I was using other things that people had made. And my easiest contribution was like, I'm setting up my laptop and it's got these specific features. I'll just write a blog post on the Ubuntu forums that documents like all the things to get this specific laptop up and running with all the features. Because somebody else had done that, and I was like, oh, they have the same laptop as me, but I have the Intel one and they have the AMD one.
Right.
And then I'd see some kid in college building tools for installing like the NVIDIA drivers, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to be like that person one day. So I ended up building this project called Carex that was Python script that would read through your installed packages and download the available packages, the lists from the repos, so you could download whatever software you wanted onto a flash drive and install it at home. And that was amazing because there was like 150,000 downloads of that after I shared it on the Ubuntu forums a few times. People would email me, like some guy had a secure air-gapped server in the government that he was using it to install software on that machine. And I was like, that's crazy. Yeah. Somebody in Africa was setting up a computer lab for, a school that didn't have reliable power or Ethernet or, internet at all. So he was able to use it. And I was like, this is incredible. But that kind of then set the tone where it was like, well, I want to do something that helps more people, at least this many people. And so that was what I think frustrated me a lot with the consulting. It was like, we'd work on a project and it would be maybe useful for internal at a company or something.
Yeah.
But there were never like big enough projects that really mattered or whatever. And that was what I was searching for.
You don't get to do cutting edge things all the time. Like it's it's vanilla.
Yeah, you gotta be fast and efficient and spend the client's money well, and so you don't get to experiment with new things as much because it's not an R&D budget, or whatever. That really pushed me to figuring out what to do, and at that time I had graduated and was consulting and was like, man, I really miss watching Rails casts, and that's where the idea hit that I was like, somebody needs to make videos, but I don't want to replace Ryan Bates. Like, he's awesome, and I'll never be as good as Ryan. And so I just started trying to record, and I was like doubting myself. So I made 2 courses. One was free, one was paid for like $39, and nobody bought them because nobody knew who I was. And that was when I was like, I probably need to do like what Ryan did, which is a free video every other week, so people could at least watch those and then see. And if they learned something, they would trust you and hopefully buy the other ones. And literally that was the only shift that people were like, hey, someone's bringing Railscast back. And I was like, well, I'm not Ryan or anywhere close to as smart as Ryan on Rails. And I was like, but this is really amazing because now people are asking me to do videos on this topic and that topic. And it forced me to get really, really good at learning fast.
Oh, absolutely.
And then also being able to teach it forces you to have at least a good understanding of how it works, because otherwise you can't really teach it. You just read out loud the steps in the README or something,
Right, which is why bother.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the video didn't do it didn't do anything of value. So yeah. So
would it be safe to say, Chris, that you do things that are going to help people or intended to help people, and they get benefit out of it, and the money sounds secondary to that?
Yeah. Yeah, I always see the money as a sign that you are doing something useful, Right.
It happens when you do that, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like people will pay you because they found value in it or whatever, and so that's a way to measure if you're on the right track or whatever. Which, going back to your question of like, these days, like my interest is we're working on Hatchbox a lot more because old Heroku decided several times over the last few years to shoot themselves in the foot a bit. But also with Go Rails, like it's like 12 years now it's past January that I started Go Rails or started working on it at least full time. And, times have changed the last 3 or 4 years where AI's come up pretty fast. And honestly, the thing that's changed the most is like, you'll just have Claude or something directly edit your code base, as opposed to, I will watch a video, learn the concepts, then translate it to my application and my needs. Effectively, Claude's already watched the video, read the documentation, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
And that means it's just able to go edit your code directly. And so there's a lot less value in the education market, at least for programming. And YouTube channels about programming are dead these days, and they're just not getting traffic or anything. And a lot of people on there have quit. And so I don't think it'll be a sustainable business to do programming education in the future. And it's not been good for us.
What does that mean about the future, though, Chris? Like, what does that mean about the next generation?
Well, see, that's the interesting thing is, the agreement used to be with Google is like, you make good content, we send people your way, and we provide you like AdSense, like a way to make money off that content. Because they're effectively like, hey, this is a partnership with you. You make good stuff. We will, people want more of that, so we will help you make a living doing that. And so that was a great thing. But now, whatever you want to call it, it's like that agreement doesn't exist anymore. Everybody's content's stolen, and it's ours now. And as an AI company, we trained on it, whether we had permission or not. And like, you're seeing Disney and these big companies going after the video generation companies and stuff, because now you can generate anything with Mickey Mouse in there or whatever. And, they may be copyrighted characters or something that like you're not supposed to be able to use yourself, but they've been trained on that content. So, it's a weird gray area now. And so my concern is like, nobody's going to be there's zero incentive to make new content, and everybody that is making content is using AI to generate content, right? So it's a bunch of just regurgitated stuff that already exists, that AI is generating more or less, right? It's not creating new creative works, really. It's just, and what was it that I was watching yesterday? It was like, if you ask it to like generate Harry Potter, it can do that to like 95% accuracy of the actual book, because it's very well trained on that stuff. And it's like, okay, that it can do what it knows, but what doesn't exist yet, it can't do. So it's not
right. That's
AGI.
Still got to come from us.
Yeah. And so there's still some benefit for us to make content, not for AI or whatever, but like, if I can document new Rails features before they come out or whatever, still has value, right? So we may still have some market there for that kind of content and whatever. But the other hard part about education is like, it's like medicine in a way, or it's like it's not like having ice cream. It's taking medicine where you don't necessarily enjoy it, but like the things you need are what you need.
Has to be done.
It's like working out. It's like work in a way too. So there's a shift that happened for me in the content, whereas like originally I was trying to spend a lot of time doing what people had asked for, and over time that burned me out pretty bad. So now I record a lot of videos that are things that I've learned or whatever. And if I know I learned something, then probably a lot of people also will learn from me. And I'll try and dig into a lot of the videos now are digging into the source code of Rails or something. Because over time, at the beginning of my career, I'd spend so much time searching Stack Overflow and Google, and now you have AI for that to find a solution for some problem, and that that stuff still exists. It's a little faster to get to your solution now because you have AI, which effectively is just the best search ever. But that doesn't mean you're going to get the best solution out of things. And I find a lot of times, if I just go look at the source code of the library, I'll figure out exactly what Rails wanted me to do here, what I did wrong, and be able to look at the related like code in that file inside of Rails, and see like, oh, this is what I'm trying to do. I didn't know this was possible because it's not really documented. So like AI is not going to help you with that stuff. So I feel like I'm at a level where there's a lot of those things that AI can't help me with because I'm looking for the undocumented solutions, the like elegant thing that will work in Rails 9 and 10 and whatever. Because I'm not trying to build like the easy solution. I'm trying to build the best long-term
find the edge
solution.
Cases and
like something that's going to be super reliable. And it's like the only way to figure that out is to actually look at the source code most of the time.
So here's my concern, Chris. We're bringing up a generation of developers who won't be able to do that. Or maybe there'll be a small subset that will be able to, but by and large, they won't.
The question is, do they need to? You know?
Well, I still think so. Yeah, I still think so. In particular, when we're asking I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Right? Yeah. Like there's potential that if things are better documented or AI is able to fill in the gaps or something, you know, because like what I've told several people is like, I wish I could just tell it to sort of almost ignore all the knowledge you already have, but go index and train yourself on Rails main right now. Like I want to make my code compatible with Rails 8.1, which is the current version that's stable, but I also want to make sure that I'm writing code that is going to be compatible with Rails 8.2 or 9.
Yeah, sure.
And whatever's in main that's not released yet. Because I don't want to write code today that works with the current version, but then I got to rewrite here in a few months when the next version comes out. So I'm trying to do that where it's more reliable. And most people, I don't think that far ahead. They just know that we'll fix it later when we need to.
Right. Have a look at those the deprecation warnings and things like that will come up. I have a friend. I have a friend, Chris, that I don't speak to very much. He's somebody that I used to work with. He runs a website for a business. It's a B2C commerce website. And he would get into a lot of problems with it. And it was an older framework. And I said to him, you probably need to learn how to code yourself so that you don't have to come to me all the time with questions that, you should be able to sort out yourself. And he took that to heart, and I didn't see him for ages. And I saw him again just recently, and I said, "Oh, did you get anywhere with learning how to program?" And I expected he would be trying to figure out how to edit HTML and CSS. That's what I expected. But he said, "No, I've been learning Python." It's great. That's fantastic. How have you been doing it? And he's doing tutorials online, which is just fantastic. And I said to him, "Oh, have you used Claude or Codex?" He's like, "No. What are you talking about?" He didn't know. Yeah. I thought that's great. Yeah, you're learning.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because if the tools continue getting better at the rate they're going, do we need to does the average person need to get in the weeds that far? Probably not. Most of the developers at big, Fortune 500 companies probably don't have to be in the weeds that much. It probably is a comparison to maybe the gaming industry, right? Like the amount of people working on the video game engines themselves are very small because those people have to know the 3D geometry and physics and all this crazy math and stuff. But the actual people making what you would consider the game is people building stuff in Lua and doing animations and whatever in Blender or something else. And they're at a higher level of abstraction because they're scripting the stories and all this other stuff, and they're not worried about particle effects and generating smoke and whatever else. So I bet you there's going to be a split in a sense where it's like these people are able to control the world in that sense at a higher level, and just that maybe hasn't really existed until this point where you can manipulate things a lot easier where it's not so manual or whatever. So that's kind of what I'm guessing is the case. And like there will still be the need for the very technical people to support them, to build the tools and whatever. But I bet you there's a lot of developers right now that are like, my job is just to get things done. And I don't want to have to read the Rails source code for the next version. I just need to get this feature done for my boss.
So do you think, like, fast forward a year, maybe two, there'll be a larger number of that group of people, like a large number, because more applications being written, more people, more accessible, a smaller number of that more specialized type that actually can read the code and understand it?
Yeah, I would think so, because effectively that's what AI will be doing for most people. And even for us, like, you know, if I need to update like the Go Rails dashboard to show like number of new signups every day and put a graph together, it's like, do I really need to be the one finding the graphing library and doing the query and whatever? No, that's not a good use of my time. And we could send Claude off on a task to do that in 15 minutes. And it's like, okay, I found chart kick and group date. And we know your users table and your database schema, so we can then, find here's the last week, month, whatever it is, and churn out a graph for you and a PR, and boom, done.
And you're pushing it to production 5 minutes later.
Yeah, and it's like that's not a good use of my time. So that's a great use case for it. So I think it'll be awesome for a ton of reasons, but also it's not good for if we lose the experts, like we're all going to be COBOL developers at some point, it feels like, but that's sort of a good thing, because now we're getting a new level of abstraction. Communicating with computers is not this like esoteric thing where you have to speak its language and learn its language. You're just speaking English to it, and it's building your website and looking at the cool stuff. Was it UI.sh that Adam Wathan and Steve Shoger have been talking about, their new design AI thing, which puts their like preferences into, UI design with AI. Looks awesome. Yeah. And it's like, you know what? Like I and probably all of their customers look up to them because they're good designers and care about the details. But I'm a back-end developer. Am I going to really go to the level of effort to put the perfect border and shadow and use opacity instead of, a solid gray or something? Like they go to super like level of detail that
pixel perfect.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't care enough to do that, but I want my stuff to look that good. And, that's going to be a perfect balance for us where if we don't care about those details, then we have AI do it. But if you do care about it, then you get in the weeds and you do those things yourself. So
you're absolutely right. And there's a few areas then that do require that programmer skill set. One is infrastructure, which we're going to talk about in a second, Hatchbox and others. The other one, I think, is electronics, and it's a programmer's brain. It's still the same thing. Now, you wrote about, it was some time ago, but you were discussing using a Raspberry Pi, running Whisper to record and then...
Yes.
Yeah, so tell me about that project, because I find that intriguing. Like, it's something I do, so tell me about what you do.
Yeah, so there's actually some screencasts on Go Rails about this, and I still have it running on my Raspberry Pi. I actually just pulled it up. Basically, when I record a video for Go Rails, and you could do the same for podcasts, but I upload them to a service called Bunny for video hosting, and they have automatic captioning, but it's like 10 cents a minute.
Oh, wow.
And, if every video of mine is say an average of 15 or 20 minutes, let's say 15 minutes, and I've got almost 800 videos, that's 12,000 minutes times 10 cents. So it's like $1,200 if I wanted to have them do all of that, which is a lot of money. And I can buy a Raspberry Pi for, RAM shortages have raised the price on them quite a bit now. But it's like I had one just sitting around just to fiddle with. And so I realized, like, why don't I just build a Rails app with a cron job, grabs the videos from there that may not have captions, and then Whisper I can run. I take the video, download it, export the audio, delete the video, take the audio, run it through Whisper, which creates a transcript with the timestamps and everything, and then take that file and just upload it to Bunny, and boom, you're done.
And it'd be a few cents per video, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it's whatever the cost of my electricity is here, and so it's a fraction of the $1,200.
It's just running locally.
Yeah, so it runs locally.
Of course.
And it can do other stuff, and it can run Home Assistant or whatever else too. So that was a little project I built that actually went through and transcribed every single thing that I've uploaded. And then now, funny enough, if you have captions on a video in Bunny, they have a free service that will go create chapters automatically for you. So it will ingest your caption for the 20-minute video and then break it down into like 5 chapters. And this will be like the intro, and then getting into building this project, and then fixing a bug and wrapping up or whatever. And so it's pretty cool. And it just one of those things. It's like a good use case for what's Alexa doing? What is Siri doing? What is all these like other things that big companies are doing? You could build your own version of that.
You absolutely can.
Home Assistant has their own local thing. And I know a lot of like Alexa or Siri or whatever may take the audio and do the processing on their servers. But there's so much machine learning running on your iPhone or whatever locally now, because hopefully it's faster. You don't have to send it off to a data center somewhere and then get the response back. The processing locally hopefully would be quicker than that, because our devices are pretty darn powerful these days. Yeah. But there's some neat things you can do now.
The reason I like working with electronics is because I can take the skills that I have from learning and understanding how to write code and combine that with something physical. That's why I like it. That's what I enjoy about it. And whilst you can have a large language model, an LLM, help you with the electronics, like, it can tell you processes and it can tell you sequences and things like that, you still have to use your hands and get in there and do it yourself.
Yeah. There's something special about physical things. Like I've got a 3D printer behind me. I grew up with my parents' basement was a wood shop, and having the ability to so like when we built our house, I was like, I don't want smart switches and stuff around the house. I had a neighbor that did all Z-Wave light switches, and he said the power went out and none of them reconnected. So he couldn't turn a single light back on, even with the power being back. And I was like, sounds like a terrible future, but I eventually did a handful of those around the house, because when we had our baby, our first son, it was like, well, my hands are full. I've got a baby in one arm. I've got all his other stuff, his bottle and toys and whatever. And I'm trying to carry things around the house. And it would be so nice if I could just say, hey, bot or voice assistant, turn off the lights. And so we did that. And then I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I was like, well, the lighting outside for the landscaping, we have just this generic timer, but I got to go change it every time that the the time zone changes, you know? So that's frustrating to do a few times a year. Why not get a smart switch for that? And then just say, turn on at sunset, turn off at midnight.
Right.
And then it adjusts automatically for you.
Yeah.
And I was like, these are really nice, small improvements. And one of the things that I did when I got my 3D printer was like, we have, you know, the typical pull-out trash can cabinets in our kitchen. You put the garbage bag in, people shove too much stuff in there. The garbage bag like falls in with it. And
no one wants to take it out to the bin.
Yeah. And I was like, you know, it'd be kind of cool if I just printed some little hooks that wrap around the trash can and hold the bag in so it doesn't ever accidentally fall in. And I printed like 8 of those, fiddling with Fusion 360, just trying to learn and come up with different designs. And now I have these little things that I've printed, I put on Maker World, and other people have downloaded them and used them in their kitchens. And I'm like, this is incredible. And there's something special about it because every single day I see them, I interact with them when I have to take out the trash. It is just very fulfilling to have those.
Life better.
Yeah. And like now I bought a leaf blower and that was laying on the floor in my garage. And I was like, I need to get this hung up on the wall. But obviously I can't just go buy a generic hook or something at the store because the shape of this thing's weird. Right. But you get on the internet, you find a 3D model, somebody's made the perfect mount, takes 2 screws, and boom. So I printed a few of those, and now I have all my tools on the wall in the garage. And I'm like, every time I go to the garage to use a tool, I interact with that little thing I made. Like someone else designed it, but I made that, and it makes my life better. And it's like, this is, I think in general, whether it's software or building things, physical, electronics, 3D printing, woodworking, whatever, just the amount of people, how fulfilling building is just amazing. But the amount of people who don't ever experience that, it's kind of crazy. Like, I remember, I forget when I got into computers exactly, like programming, but I remember it was kind of like when I got glasses for the first time, you know, like my vision feels like it's not great sometimes, like things feel blurry, but you've never experienced anything different. And then you put glasses on and they correct your vision and you're like, holy shit, have you guys seen the trees? Like they're so beautiful and they're not just blurry, you know? And it was the same thing when I learned programming because it applied to everything. Because I would look at, you know, drywall and be like, that's made of something. What is that? You know, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Someone like designed that. And then you figure out all these crazy things where you're like, you know, the pellet smokers for like cooking meat. Right. The pellets of wood that it burns is just garbage that someone took from a sawmill and was like, they just throw this stuff away or burn it or something. They're like, let's take that trash from that business. They'll probably pay us to take it away or something, you know? And then like, let's make pellets out of it and use that to build smokers and grills and whatever. And it's like, you know, the amount of creative things you can do when you know how to build stuff, it just makes like life totally different where you realize you can just go change things as opposed to sitting and having to experience frustration or whatever. And just like, that's all you can do. You can just only feel frustration if you don't know how to build things and fix things or whatever. And like, I don't want to live in that world.
There is a skill set. There is a skill set, Chris, that programmers have, which is that ability to observe something and figure out what's wrong. I'll give you an example. Again, in the field of electronics. So, you know, we've gotten used to being able to tell our Claudes and our codexes, this thing isn't working, go fix it. And it'll go and fix it. And it'll go, oh, I found what the problem is and here's my solution. So, you know, these tools are getting good at it. I had a problem with a small computer controller, an ESP32. which some of our listeners will know about. And it wasn't doing what it was supposed to, which is actually this panel behind me here.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So it was, the display wasn't displaying. It was like, random pixels were showing, okay, there's something wrong with it. I don't know what it is. And I had to use those skills that I have to figure out what was wrong, because there was no way the machine was going to tell me what was wrong. Like even if I took photos of it, it wasn't going to go, this is what you've got wrong. Anyway, it took a while, and eventually I found that it was a bad solder, so I fixed the solder and it worked. And it was that same satisfaction as when you find you've missed a semicolon out or something like that, It was that same feeling of, I found it, I fixed it, it's now working perfectly. And this is a skill set that programmers have.
Yeah, and it's the same skill set that any plumber, electrician,
engineers,
roofers, any builders of any kind, really. Yeah. Ours happen to be a lot of digital things, which aren't necessarily as satisfying or fulfilling, because it's just digital. You don't get to feel it. You can experience it. It's different. It's not tangible. But it still gives you a lot of the same joy or whatever. But it's one of those things that I feel like the average person, will something broke. I just got to throw it away and buy a new one most of the time, as opposed to let me see if I can take this apart and fix it and see what's wrong and whatever. Yeah. And the industries are all working against that, where they don't want you to fix it. They want you to buy a new one. It's like, if your TV breaks, good luck. You're probably not going to be able to fix that. You're just going to have to throw it away and get a new one. And luckily, those are one of the few things going down in price all the time.
Yeah, right.
But yeah. So,
Chris, when you were a kid, did you used to pull things apart and try to fix them?
I was always building with Legos, and my parents would put me to work in the wood shop, and they would drag me to woodworking craft shows on the weekends, and we would spend a bunch of time making Christmas ornaments and things, and I had a bunch of fun doing that. My favorite things were building. We have a miniature lathe that you could make pens and pencils and stuff on, and make darts or whatever. And it's like, if you go from a plastic, cheaply made dart to one with a nice tip on it that's brass or whatever, but a wooden handle that you sanded down, you put a finish on it, it just feels nice.
Totally.
And it's not just a cheap thing, and you start to appreciate those things. And when you see good furniture or a good design of something, it's just this is awesome. This is why the Apple products all feel so much more appealing, because they feel right. They put time into that, and they don't go for the cheapest plastic to just contain the circuit board or whatever. They design every little bit of that thing, as opposed to a lot of other companies that they design it, but they design it with not feel in mind. They design it with price in mind, and they're just trade-offs. But you start to appreciate those things, and over time you're like, I just wish things would last or whatever. And, the quality stuff becomes a priority, or something you appreciate more as you get older, and your money goes into buying things. You're like, I don't want to buy the fifth snow shovel or whatever, because they can't build them well. But,
I've got a, just down here, you can't see it, but down on the ground over here, I've got a 2013 MacBook Pro that is still running today. It's got a Marchi on it, and it's running a server, and I have little applications running on it 24/7.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In fact, there's panels running off of it.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Yeah, because it just keeps working.
Yeah, there's no reason to, and especially as newer computers go through the roof in price, it's these, I still have an M1 MacBook Pro, and it's that thing is still super fast. And
absolutely,
why? Yeah. I don't even have the need to update it, and if it's going to continue working well, then great. So there may be things where this is not very power efficient anymore. Maybe I should get your Raspberry Pi can do, so much compared to what they used to or whatever. So sometimes
or the operating system doesn't load anymore.
Yeah.
Apple will do that to you. Your hardware's great, but
right. Because, you need those glass animations and stuff. That's just so important.
I'm so sick of that. Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, that's...
Chris, let's talk about Heroku.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's funny is when I was in college, this is 2010 maybe, I was like a junior or senior in college. Blake Mizorani from Heroku actually came out to our school, to the computer science department, and was like, here's Heroku.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I had never used Rails before, I don't think. So that probably was 2010, 2009, maybe. And yeah, he showed us this, and we were like, just students. So we'd not really ever built any real applications start to finish. And we certainly had never deployed anything. Right. Servers are scary. I'd run Linux on my own, but like, what is production? How does that work? No idea. And it was much scarier back then and less documentation and stuff. So
right.
I was blown away. I ended up getting a job with a professor that had grants, and we worked on this thing called the Zooniverse, and they had a bunch of projects. One of them that I worked on, Galaxy Zoo, would take photos of galaxies from like the Hubble telescope and crowdsource, like categorizing them. So there would be like a photo of a galaxy that has two tails, and you would tell it, does it have one tail, two tails, three tails, whatever. And we just crowdsource that and try and get a good average and hopefully the correct answer to that, because there was just too many photos to go through as a team or whatever. So that was really fun and got me into Ruby on Rails and stuff. But Heroku was like just this miracle thing back then.
Right, because the alternative at that time was, I think, only AWS or one of those other platforms. And
it was pretty much, if it was Slice Host or AWS or whatever, it was pretty much, here's a Ubuntu server, good luck, and it was do it yourself. There's no help configuring load balancers or any of that stuff. It was kind of all on your own, and that was and of course it was all done in the terminal as well. So if you didn't have any skills around that or were scared of that, forget it. Yeah, it was pretty incredible back then, and similar to the Rails demo of a blog in 10 or 15 minutes, like a Git push in your applications in production. Pretty awesome back then. So it's sad to see like where it ended up after the Salesforce acquisition, because, in theory, Salesforce was a good owner of it, but obviously they're using it to build more Salesforce apps and integrations and whatever is what their goal was with it, I'm sure. I don't think Salesforce ever saw it as an acquisition of like, we're going to become an infrastructure company like Amazon did with AWS. Like that was a great, super smart move, but Salesforce never took it in that same direction.
No, and it confuses me, Chris. Like, did they ever think that they were going to do that? Was there plans around that? I mean, there were some things that were built, and there were obviously account executives whose job it was to sell it, but not really.
Right. Yeah, I don't really know what happened. And I also never really paid close attention to, like, Heroku raised money, didn't they? Like, were they a funded startup back then? I don't remember.
Back in the day, yes.
Yeah, before they got acquired.
Yeah, totally.
So, they had investors that if you get a good offer from Salesforce.
Sure. And it seemed like at that time, I mean, I don't remember it actually at the time, but it would have appeared like, this is a really good move. It would have been like, a company like Amazon building AWS out, and they're like, here's a great future for this product, and it just turned out to not be that. And then probably 2 years ago, Chris, they tried to turn that boat around.
Right. They got a ton of criticism for no HTTP 2 support and other basic
and
modern things. And
no PG Vector and things like that. And
Right. Yeah, and so many good people had worked there. They had a special thing, and maybe this was because they were a YC startup, it looks like, from 2008. Acquired and finalized in 2011 for $212 million. So that was probably a decent.
Somebody got well paid out of that.
Yeah, and these weren't the like multi-billion-dollar exits that showed up years later or whatever. But that was a probably a good move for them financially and stuff. And if hopefully the internal conversations were that they were going to take this to, look how big Salesforce is. We have so many customers, we could just move all of them over to our cloud. That would be a great move. But
which must have been the thought, because at 212 million, it must have been the thought. Yeah.
Surely. Yeah. Because who knows what their actual revenue or whatever was at the time. So, because that was in cash, it sounds like.
Wow. Salesforce had the money, that's for sure.
Yeah. They sure did. Well, they may not anymore with layoffs and everything, but
and that's been sad for me. Like, I've continued to use Heroku through the years because it's still, for us, it's been a great product, and I still love the, how easy it was to set up and how easy it was to deploy and all of that, and how easy it was to manage. Like, I'm talking about it all in past tense. It still exists, but I loved all of that. And so I continued to use it. And, just between us, I got work out of Salesforce. Like, Salesforce would call me and say, hey, I've got this client wants to build something. So, that's been good over the years. But the disappointing thing has been the backup and the support internally at Salesforce. Now, the Heroku team itself have been great, and I love those guys. There's developers in there who are just amazing people, and some of them are still there and some of them are elsewhere, and some of the sales staff that I have personal relationships with that, no longer have their jobs. Some great guys in there. And they were passionate. They loved Heroku, but they were very much a small voice. Like, I would go to the large Salesforce convention, Dreamforce and TDX, the two annual conferences that I went to. And, for all of the talk we would have about Salesforce, I would turn up to one of these, to Dreamforce, and it was like a little stall out the back with the little sign that said Heroku and, all the flashy stuff all around it. And, I was like, oh, this is disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's not their main customer base, developers is not. Yeah. So, yeah. And then,
look, okay, so they've moved to what's called a sustaining engineering model, which means it's not being supported. Being supported. So you can still go online and you can still sign up for and use Heroku, but you probably, I don't want to be mean, but you probably shouldn't, because there's no innovation there. There's no future. That's a path.
Yeah, and they haven't been, and unfortunately, like, it's not like they've been competitive price-wise for a long time either.
No, that's right.
You can get a 2.5 gig server, 2.5 gigs of RAM for $250 a month, which is nuts. Like, Hetzner's maybe the cheapest, most cost-effective option, these days, but they're not necessarily as reliable as like a DigitalOcean. Like, Hetzner, actually, their main Falkenstein data center, this past week, I was helping a customer of Hatchbox, and he was like, it's not giving me any like servers that I can create in that region. And I was like, that's weird. Let me go look this up. Their status page was like, yeah, we've disabled this data center region for whatever reason, it was like they ran out of capacity or something. I was like, oh my God. So they're growing at a pretty good rate, it sounds like, because of their costs being so effective. But we looked at, somebody had a Performance L dyno on Heroku. It was $500 a month, 14 gigs of RAM. And I went to Hetzner and was like, you can't even spend $500 a month on a server there. It tops out at like $330 a month. And it had 192 gigs of RAM instead of 14. And I was like, there's your price differences. You get like 16 times the amount of RAM for almost $200 less or $150 a month less. Like, that's wild.
You know what? On Heroku, Chris, if you're an enterprise customer, and I hope there's no enterprise customers listening to this right now, but if you're an enterprise customer, you could set up your dynos, but when you wanted to set up your PG database, you had to start at $1,000 a month for enterprise.
Yeah.
Like you bought this credits package, right? And that was the only way to purchase your database through this credits package.
Wow.
You started at $1,000 US.
Wow. And these days you have, ex Heroku people at Crunchy Data and, GitHubbers that have built Planet Scale, and they both are phenomenal database experts and super fast, super performant, just awesome places. And like, if you have a big database at Heroku, they're probably the only options to migrate off to. It'll also be in AWS, but like they can do, real-time replication across or whatever. And it's like, you're not gonna hit the backup database button for a terabyte of data and download that and then re-upload that somewhere else.
Re-upload that.
You can't do that. That doesn't work. So for like real big production stuff like that, it's like, you can move off of Heroku and you'll still pay probably a pretty penny for that, but like you're going to probably get a lot better performance and, more modern, latest Postgres features, whatever else, just really good, timely support from those guys and whatever. And that's, just unfortunately Heroku just got stagnant for so long, and then with Salesforce,
no one trying to sell it. I mean, besides that small group of people, which just was not going to be enough.
And if they're not going to invest in updating everything, then your renders and railways that are more or less direct competitors to it will swing in and try and offer the exact same service for pretty much the same functionality and a fraction of the cost. And, it's kind of a no-brainer.
After the announcement, I took a small app that was running and I loaded it onto a number of different platforms because I wanted to know and understand the experience for each of them. So I probably loaded it onto, I think, 4, maybe 5 different applications and had a look at what, changes I needed to make to code and how easy and hard it was going to be to do. And they were a little bit more difficult. Like, we know how easy it was to run something and to run up Heroku. They were slightly harder, but not so much that you would go, I'm not going to do this. Like, it wasn't that bad. And, one for one, they all, loaded up and, often on a free tier, which is something, unfortunately, Heroku had to drop.
Yeah, and you would think that after they dropped the free tier a few years ago, like, that's totally fine. Like, I'm sure there was an insane amount of abuse going on.
There was. I spoke to some people about it.
Why not do a Bitcoin miner on a free tier or whatever? So that makes sense to get rid of that. But then, the rest of the platform hopefully would have improved. And it was seeing some improvements, but then just kind of died off again. Like, it wasn't clearly... It was too little too late.
Too late. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. No, there was a fair amount done to try to modernize, but it was too little too late. And, it's unfortunate. And it was interesting because they had this guy, Bob Wise, who was the VP that was running the area. And I think he brought like a lot of really good changes. He had them develop Kubernetes containers to run the platform, which was like, that was a great innovation and worked really well, and a few other things. And he was like really on the ball, but then he got a better offer at NVIDIA and off he went. And with a couple of other,
Yeah, NVIDIA right now, it would be a good move. Very good move.
He obviously very smart. And I think one or two of his staff left with him or soon after. And
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So that this let's start things again didn't last long, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we've seen too, because we're not a fully managed platform with Hatchbox. We run on your servers, but I think one of the other things that's happened in that time is that like servers have gotten a lot easier to run and manage too. So I think, there's been a bit of this philosophy or whatever you would say that like, oh, it's too scary and too hard to manage servers yourself or, do that in production. But honestly, like if you lock down SSH so that you have to use SSH keys and you set some basic firewall rules and a handful of things, like it's really not that hard to secure your servers these days. And then
for somebody who knows what they're doing, let's just clarify that.
Yes. Yes. But it's like if you're interested, you can pretty quickly find those answers.
Yes, you can.
It also gives you flexibility to do stuff you can't otherwise. So like, Heroku had your US and EU regions, but if you wanted a data center in Australia, sorry, everything's very far away from you and it's going to be kind of slow.
Or you could pay a premium to do it. Like that was an option.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could pay another.
Because they could do that with the enterprise or private.
Yeah, there was a thing called a private space, so you could add that on, and I think it was around $1,500 per month to have.
Yeah, no big deal.
No.
Yeah, and it's like okay, if that makes sense, but we have tried to serve that part of the market that's like, you know what, I use Linux day to day or something. I just don't want to be like alone when I'm running a production server myself or whatever. So Hatchbox kind of comes in as that role where it's like we try to make it similar as easily to deploy as Heroku, where we detect a gem file and your Ruby version and we install those and whatnot. Right. You create a Postgres database, we assign the database URL environment variable and whatever. So we've kind of like done that experience on your own servers, but you also don't have to like make sure your app is Dockerized or whatever. That can be quite a pain sometimes. And just tough to debug is really the biggest issue a lot of times, I find.
And you've been doing some migrations recently?
Yeah, so we've been helping. I just sent out a couple tweets after I saw the because Hatchbox has been really like our side project for a long time, but it might become our primary business. And it really actually, I think, is the product of ours that makes the most money these days. So we're like, I guess time to double down on it. But yeah, we've been helping a few people migrate because the average, I think we can get people's Heroku costs down to about a third on Hatchbox, which is kind of wild. And there are so many like small business or side projects that run on one or two dynos on Heroku that are perfect fit for us, where like you can go to DigitalOcean or Hetzner or something, get a super powerful server for $45 or $20 or whatever.
Yeah.
And your application's running at 5% of the CPU and half the RAM or whatever. And it's like, well, you're over provisioned. You don't need all this CPU or whatever, but it's hard to spend less money on, on a server.
Yeah, you're still at $5 a month or something.
Yeah, and so it's been kind of awesome to help people save money, especially now when economies are in tough spots. People are paying more and more for groceries and whatever, and it's like if you got 10 side projects and you're paying for say 2 dynos for every single one of those, plus your Postgres, plus your Redis, plus whatever else you might have as add-ons, like it adds up to easily $1,000 a month or more. And I have a server that's, I think it's 4 gigs of RAM or something, and I got like 5 or 6 Rails apps on it that are just small side projects that don't get much traffic, and they all cost $10 for Hatchbox and like $20 for the server, and it's like that would have cost me well over $500 or $600 for Heroku, and it's $30.
And there's a certain requirement to have somebody to advise you. These are the tools you actually do need, and to run them and to turn them off when they're not needed anymore. And, we all have this experience of something running in AWS that's been there forever and a day that you forgot to turn off, and you're paying for every month because you forgot about.
Yeah, we found one person's staging environment cost him more than his production environment, because they had been paying close attention to that one, where they were like, well, we spin this one, dyno up periodically when we have a bunch of jobs or whatever, and we scale it back down when we don't. Their staging had just been left alone, and it was like $300 a month, and it's spending more than production was. And I was like, because the funny thing is, it's like we don't really have auto scaling, because we set up a server and that can take 10 minutes or whatever. We can in the future do that. It's just slower than spinning up a new container somewhere. But it's like, you don't even have to worry about scaling up and down with a lot of this, because it's still so cheap that you just leave it running at the higher capacity and it's fine. And most of I would imagine most of our customers, and probably most people, the average apps probably don't need scaling. They know when their launch for a new product or announcement or Black Friday is coming up, and it's like, okay, throw a couple more servers at it the week before Black Friday, and then shut them down afterwards. Not a big deal, and so the auto scaling stuff is all awesome, but what Render just announced, they raised $100 million to continue growing, and it's like, yeah, cool. Right. You can scale to the moon if you need to, but not every application is like that. Render doesn't really have a free tier. They've got like a fake free tier where it's free for like the first 30 days, and then it all costs money. Yeah, and,
right. But then you still have to pay for other things that you need, like S3 or...
and then it's also interesting because most of the other ones are like you just pay per usage of things, but they also have just like a flat $20 or $40 a month platform fee to like generally use Render or whatever. And I think it's just to get their minimum spend down to, instead of $0 or $5 or $1, it's $20 per person. But
they get to say there's a free tier, but it's
it's not exactly. It's not like Heroku's was, and
and look, I can't blame these companies for not really offering that. As you said, they're just wide open to people scamming and doing the wrong thing. So it's
definitely a challenge, and like we're small, so we just don't. We have a free trial, but like when I started Hatchbox, we had so much freaking support that I was like, I'm putting a credit card required up front because I don't want to deal with anybody who's not serious and wants to pay eventually, and that was good for us because it whittled down to people and getting feedback only from the people who are willing to put a credit card number in. Yeah. It was like, these are the people who are serious about this, which is good. So, yeah, it's been quite the challenge. I would not recommend anybody build a hosting platform by themselves. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but once it's built, like it definitely is what's required. Like it absolutely is.
It just never ends, though. It's like, every single day something else breaks. Somebody's got some weird thing, whatever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Do you have a 24/17?
No, it's actually Colin and I are both in Central Time in the U.S., so that's our main main coverage or whatever. When we're asleep, then our responses are a little longer, but generally it's kind of nice because all of Hatchbox runs on your servers, so we don't actually have any centralized services that your applications depend on. So there's no like logging to our own ClickHouse database or Prometheus or anything. Like everything lives on your own servers. The only downside to that is we need, and we're partnering with AppSignal and stuff to help like take your logs and put them all in one place, so you don't have to like have your logs spread across 4 servers and being able to see your metrics and whatnot of CPU usage and RAM usage and whatnot. That is something that they can aggregate, and it makes a lot of sense for us to work with companies like that, because we could set up our own database and try and do all that, but then we introduce a dependency there, and it's like, is that our expertise? Not really, and we don't even do managed. Yeah, exactly. And we don't even do managed databases. Like, we are mostly about deploying the applications. If you want a database with point-in-time recovery and whatnot, you've got so many good options. You got DigitalOcean managed databases. You've got RDS. You got PlanetScale, Crunchy Data, all kinds of things. So, like, go use them. And they're awfully affordable and, whatever. So, go do that. If you want to use them, like PlanetScale or Crunchy, like they tend to live in AWS, so just make sure you deploy through Hatchbox to AWS and use the same regions, and it's pretty straightforward. Then it's not that big a deal, but we also run into that where you've got a smallish database, but that would cost $25 or $50 a month on Heroku, and it's pretty small, and you can just run it on your server for free. It's like, it's not hard to maintain. Postgres is really easy. And if you don't need anything but occasional backups, like every hour to S3 or something, then perfect. Just run it and then have it backed up. And we've got a little script that'll do that. Then you can save another $50 a month or whatever, and it's perfect. So,
life gets a little bit easier. Yeah, I've found the same thing. Obviously, we have our ops care at reinteractive, which is a similar sort of service, not exactly the same, but we've always had a 24/7 support team. Just because sometimes the calls come in the middle of the night, but maybe that's because of where we are as well. Like, a lot of our clients are distributed around the world. So,
we do have enough. We'll probably hire somebody soonish
sounds
to
like
take
as it
over
grows, that'll be, What if I was an enterprise customer of Heroku and I was considering my options, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, depends on your needs. Like, if you need auto scaling or whatever, a lot of the managed services like Render or Railway are pretty good options for that. Like, they're going to be the most Heroku-like experience for sure. We really come in at the most cost-effective option, I think, but we are smaller, so we're not as big of a team. We haven't raised $100 million, unfortunately, But I'm also very glad we haven't raised $100 million, and I don't have a boss of investors and a board and all that. But that's probably the best place for enterprise, customers. They would be able to get the most similar experience from probably Render or a DigitalOcean like app platform, I think they call it. I haven't heard a ton of people talking about DigitalOcean's app platform. Which kind of surprises me because they're a big company that a lot of people are just renting servers from, like VPSs. So that's an option too. And they've got, their managed databases and all that as well.
Would you recommend, Chris, that people look at moving immediately, short term, long term? I mean, I know, it depends.
I'd start planning immediately. I think if you're an enterprise customer, you probably got a lot sort of tailored to your workflows and pipelines for promoting from staging to production and QA and review applications and all of that. So, the biggest challenge is going to be you can spin up a copy of your application anywhere pretty quickly, but when you've got to replicate a giant production database and get it somewhere else, that is a challenge. Getting maintenance time down for, you'll need to make sure your like DNS records go to the shortest caching time to live. When you're ready to switch it, you will be able to do it within 5 minutes instead of like 24 hours. And that's the tough migration stuff that you have to prepare for and take time for. And you don't really, a lot of times you can't really afford any downtime, so you gotta run both the applications in one place. But if you could move your database from Heroku to Planet Scale, let's say, and you run your application also on render, then both applications can point to the same database. So then when you move your DNS over, nothing happens. There's no downtime. So you really, if you're going to plan to move, I don't think you have to move right away, but you can guarantee that if you need their support, it's probably going to get worse and worse over time.
For sure.
So planning the move now is probably the smart thing to do. And it's probably going to take you some time. But we had a customer that moved his site over to Hatchbox that was like 1 million page views a day kind of thing. And he cut its cost down a ton, but like the migration, our applications are generally small. So he had a big 5 gigabyte cache instance that was on Heroku. So when he moved it over, didn't really cross either one of our minds that like your cache is cold. So hopefully it gets repopulated fast. And it was not fast. It would take like 20 seconds for the average cache entry to be generated. So he's getting hit with all this traffic, and then cache was just, it just kind of had effects of like, I would try and ping his server and we would not get a response, and it would time out after several minutes, trying to get through the queue of
at
traffic.
that time, wouldn't you?
It was painful. And I was like, I wish I could help, but it's also partly his code. So he went back after we hopped on a call, and he was like, I think I can just eliminate the like slow part of this and generate a very quick version of it for anything that is not cached. So after an hour or two, he deployed a new version that took care of that, and he was able to, pages responded right away, and then he could run his background job. But he had, a million or more records that needed 20 seconds a piece to generate the cache. And I was like, dude, this is going to take days or weeks, like that's not going to be a quick fix here. You got to do something else. And that's an interesting thing where it's like, as the hosting company, I can't help you with that. We can provide the infrastructure for you, but if your application code is the thing that's at fault here, that's the challenge. And you may just have worked yourself into sort of a corner with your production code on Heroku that like, we just assume that the cache is always warm because it's always been warm, and we've never had to like start from a cold start.
Zero.
So there may be some weird things that you run into that, but you're going to want to do a fairly thorough analysis of that, and there's some challenges to migrate for those reasons. But if you can try and get ahead of it, then you will likely have a very smooth transition in production, and possibly you could set up, some DNS routing so that like 10% of traffic can go to the new instance, and then roll it out over time, and not just do a complete cutover all at once or whatever. Lots of things you can do for sure.
And it will do, like every application's different and every use is different. So there might be some that have a downtime at, everyone stops using it at 5 p.m. So 6 p.m. is a great time to do it.
Right. We're talking to a person who's got an app that like the end of the month everybody logs in and uses it, and then it's like the middle of the month, nobody's using it.
Right,
so
gives you plenty of time.
We're like, there's probably 3 weeks that you could do a migration, and you could make a whole bunch of mistakes in the meantime. No one's going to notice, and that's fine. Or even just frankly, just letting everybody know we're going to be in maintenance on Sunday or whatever for estimated for these 4 hours.
Yeah, right.
You know what?
Right.
It's fine. It's probably fine. It happens all the time. So,
it happens all the time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is really a smart thing to do for some. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you're not Shopify scale most of the time. So, and if you have the resources to do it where there's zero time downtime, great. But if not, and your customer base is able to be understanding for that, then like that's fine. You can do a maintenance window, and that's understood. People get that.
Yeah.
So lots of different ways you can tackle those things, but it seems like something that Heroku is going to continue on for probably as long as it's still not costing Salesforce money. Like if it's still profitable for them, then they will probably
don't
keep
forget
doing
they've got a bunch of their internal applications running on Heroku. So
right,
yeah.
And who knows? Maybe some of that $100 million for render ends up where and I've heard rumor that like people have had conversations of like selling off Heroku to new owners or whatever and getting it out of Salesforce. And it's like, it makes sense that it's got the history and the reputation that under new ownership it could thrive or whatever.
Right. Was the right person, the community would take to it.
Yeah, and if
some of those
Salesforce is willing to let go of it or whatever, then it's possible it could have a new life or something. But it also might just be too little, too late. But it's unfortunate. But things have changed. There's so many new technologies, and Kubernetes and servers are generally easier these days too, and all that it's sort of good change to be forced to
anymore. Yeah, it's not unique anymore. There was a time a decade ago when it was unique, and today that's not the case.
And I would bet that like most Heroku customers that have been there for over 5 years just have gotten a little bit complacent on the pricing.
Oh, for sure.
And usage and whatever. And like, you might be surprised how much money you save moving somewhere else. And, you just never considered it because you never really were forced to. And looking at it, you might be like, wow, we could be half the price on Render or Hatchbox or whatever, and, or less, or who knows what. But
there is a tool, Chris, which you may or may not be aware of, called Heroku Connect.
It sounds familiar, but I don't know what it does.
Heroku Connect was basically sort of abstracted away API calls to Salesforce. So it matched data in Salesforce to a PG database and did a real-time sync between the two. So you could these are the fields I want to match up, and this is what they're called in my Rails app, and it would match them. And it was like, it used that whole Heroku UI, so it was really simple to do, and it would take literally minutes to just, sync data between the two, between Salesforce. So that's something which some customers are going to be using, and it's going to keep them stuck to, because it's going to take a bit of work to untangle that, to write the API and to do all that. It's possible. Of course it's possible, but it's an additional thing that keeps some people stuck.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like, if you depend on that, then it's not that big a deal to just stay on Heroku, and I'm sure it will be fine. But it's the real scary part will be like, what if next year they decide not to renew the enterprise contracts? Then what?
Right.
So
or
now,
as you said before,
customers,
the support just gets worse and worse, or the outages get worse and worse, which is entirely likely.
Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting challenge for people then, for sure, because anytime you're quite tied into some third party thing, then that's a liability, really.
It is, yeah.
Our first version of Hatchbox, I struggled with it a lot because like I knew the basics of running stuff and had been running my own things for a long time. But as I built this for other people, then every single issue that I ran into, which was almost always using other people's software, it would be catastrophic for me because I had chosen to use this, program for a certain feature of Hatchbox that wasn't well maintained or had broken or something. And one of them, a good example of this was like, I had used the official instructions from Let's Encrypt for SSL certificates.
Right. Yeah.
God forbid I use the actual instructions, right? And, it tells you use certbot as a Ubuntu package. And I start getting complaints from some customers like 3 months later that their SSL certificates didn't renew.
Right.
And you get looking into the logs and looking into the source code of and the GitHub issues of the package. Well, bad news is that the internal Let's Encrypt team is saying, yeah, we haven't updated that in like a year because we don't have anybody on staff that knows how to do this. And I was like, well, who made that in the first place? And then you're telling me that all of my customers are running a version of the software with bugs in it that mean it can't renew certificates. So I have to replace this somehow. And, the new version depends on Python, and I would have to then go install Python on everybody's servers and then run that, sort of manually through Git clone and all that. So it was like one option. But I forget what I ended up doing because I was like, yeah, but when Python changes or whatever, I got to be careful to make sure I use the exact version that they support and whatever. Right. So I found Acme SH, which was like a bash implementation of the same process. Okay. Or so it seems. And I was like, that's very portable. It should work anywhere and whatever. Nah, not really. It had plenty of its own warts and things. So it would like get certificates, and then it didn't have all the functionality I needed or wanted. And sometimes, you would have it list the certificates and they'd be in a different order, and I'd get the wrong. I'd end up with the expired certificate being installed in Nginx instead of the renewed one. And it was just a mess. And I was like, this doesn't work either. And so we like ripped that out, and or at least Hatchbox Classic may still use that. We mostly moved everybody over to the new version of Hatchbox, right. But I rewrote it from scratch, being like, we were going to use as few of dependencies as possible, And this time around,
less to go wrong.
Yeah, and this time around, like the only two things we really depend on, and we're moving to Mies for installing your Ruby versions and whatever. But ASDF has also done the same thing to us. So like, this will be convenient where we can install any language, pretty much any version, whatever. But then they switch from Bash to Rust, and they don't support like environment variables and other things. So it makes it a bit trickier to work with. So we're switching to Mies because that's incredibly well maintained and well designed, because the guy worked on like Heroku's CLI and stuff in the past. Okay. And that's another exceptionally well done CLI and whatnot. So Jeff Dickey, who maintains that, is incredible and really, really good. And he's also started, because I've been pre-compiling Ruby for all these versions, but Ruby is not portable. So if you compile Ruby in one folder, that's the only folder it can ever live in. And you can't move it somewhere else. So I have to compile it for ASDF, and then if you move it to Mies, then you got to compile another copy of it for them. But now he's doing, at least for the more recent, like Ruby 3.2 and up, portable versions, so they'll be able to move around or whatever and stuff. But that and Caddy were the two best things. Caddy is incredible.
I like Caddy. Yeah, I've used
it. It
that.
is so good. It is so good. There's a few things I wish that it was a few little things that I think could be a little better. Like there's no API to kind of get the the exact status of like the upstreams. So if you have a load balancer with Caddy, it'll tell you like, here's how many requests and how many fails are to this upstream server. But like, it doesn't tell you, is this one considered active or down? The docs actually tell you like, look at the numbers and look at your config and then figure it out yourself. And it's like, yeah, but I don't really, it's not, you internally, Caddy knows if the server is in, the loop or not, or this one's been pulled out. So why not just have something that just tell me that right now, please. So, a couple little things like that could be better, I think. But now it's got an API. It has wildcard DNS support. So like one thing, you could deploy yourself with Kamal, which is great, but like Kamal proxy doesn't support wildcard DNS, not yet at least. And we can set up your server. So like you could be like Shopify with custom domains, point into your apps, and then we'll just generate an SSL certificate automatically if your app tells us that's an approved domain or not, which is awesome. So then we can go and create SSL certificates for any domain that your customers want to use that forward to your app and just get routed correctly or whatever. Maybe we'll see that in Kamal proxy in the future too, which is, another good option to deploy if you're familiar with Docker and don't mind managing your own servers. And it's like, we're in that balance of like, people don't want to do that. There's lots of people who do want to.
Isn't it? But this is the takeaway. Like, talk to the people that actually understand this. Like, people like yourself, people like Reinteractive. There are people who understand what's needed here, and you might not even know that these things are going to be problems. Yeah. So,
Yep. That can be the challenge. And really the biggest thing is like, what if something goes wrong? If it goes wrong with Kamal and you don't know what you're doing, your site's down for X number of hours until Claude or Google or somebody on Discord or something can help you. But that could be a long time, and there's
a long time for a production app. Yeah.
And there's also no preventative maintenance. So there's nobody like working ahead of you, which, if they're a client of yours or a customer of ours, we're testing the new stuff ahead of time. So when it's ready, we'll bring it to you. We're going to test the new Ubuntu 26.04 LTS version before it's released so that when it's out, you can upgrade your servers and all our stuff should work with it just fine.
Well, that reminds me, Chris, was it end of last year? I think I had a rash of people calling me saying AWS is going to upgrade my Postgres database, but I'm on the wrong Rails version. What do I do? Well,
oh, sure. Yeah.
This is not something you needed to call me about a week before it's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, those are definitely challenges that, are an interesting burden where it's like and also somebody recently, we were talking about Docker, and it's like, one of the funny things is, you can run Docker Ruby 183 or whatever. Or 187 or whatever the oldest, stable version of it was. But you shouldn't. You can. Docker makes it easy, but that's a horrible idea. And there are some of those things where like, they're going to upgrade and Heroku is fairly pushy about, you have to use a pretty recent version of Ruby or whatever. Which is a good thing though. Like it helps encourage your customers to upgrade and you don't want them to be too far behind, but it is a lot of work sometimes. Like we have customers with slow deployments that take 15 plus minutes because they're on Webpacker still. And it's just slow. And I'm like, I would love to see you get over to ES Build at the very least, which is really fast, or Vite, probably probably an easier migration, but either way, they don't have any engineering time to like get off Webpacker.
Or budget, Chris, budget.
Or budget, yeah,
because you're telling them it's going to be, X number of weeks to do that. And they're like, well, my last upgrade wasn't that long.
Yeah, and they're also like, this at the end of the day, we spent 2 weeks and X number of dollars and we got nothing out of it, right? The only thing they got was all you did was replace some internal thing, but there's no business benefit to it. There's no
you found a gem that worked.
Yeah. And it just sucks because it's like it feels like it's not worth spending on because they don't get any benefits out of it. But you can use the negative whip and say, hey,
security.
We're not going to let you deploy if you don't upgrade to Ruby 3.2 or something.
Yeah. This is my life on sales, trying to help explain. And the person I'm talking to is not the person who's going to approve the budget. So I've got to explain it to them so they can take it to someone else. And anyway, it's the way it goes.
Yep. It's
Chris,
a challenge.
We're probably out of time today. I had lots more questions I was going to ask you, but maybe we'll just do this again sometime.
Yeah, we should. We should. Love to.
You're going to be at some events upcoming in the short term or through this year?
I think Rails World for sure, but I don't know if I'm going to make it to too many others this year. We'll see. I was hoping to go to Blast Off Rails, but turns out vacation is overlapping that, so I'm not going to make that.
RubyConf?
I'm not sure about RubyConf. I'd like to, but I'm not sure. They're doing some interesting stuff this year with the gala.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Supporter tickets were like $2,000. I think because the gala is included in that or whatever. I was like, we'll see on that one. I don't know if I will. I'm probably gonna just cut it back this year a bit with the 5-month-old and stuff. Traveling is a little tougher now with 2 kids too. So once they're a bit more settled and whatnot, then it'll be easier to get back. But I'm thinking Rails World is the main guarantee that I will be at. I'm also going to be at Toronto Tech Week, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think in May. So
yeah, okay,
it'll be fun.
All right. If anybody wants to meet you, they're the places.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Chris. Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate you spending the time with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll see what happens with all this stuff in the future. AI is really changing the game, and it's going to make all this quite different in the next 6 months.
We're going to talk again in 6 months and go, weren't we naive back then?
Right. It's been a good shakeup of things. Like we got into our habits of this is the way things are done and getting, maybe a bit more efficient, but now it's kind of like, well, if everything's changing, how do we reevaluate all of the things we do? And it's been a good time to do that. A little scary, A
little scary.
Will we even have jobs? Maybe not. But
this is one of the reasons I like doing podcasts, Chris, because they're real live conversations. No one can take this away.
Yeah. But you're going to be competing with the AI generated podcasts in the future. So
I'm comfortable doing that for now.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. I already was watching YouTube with my son one night when he was going to bed, and he clicked on a video. We were watching, some normal shows like Paw Patrol or something. And then one episode finishes, he clicks on this other one, and it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It was all AI generated. It kind of had a story to it, but it was just pulling in like Paw Patrol and Spider-Man and Thomas the Tank Engine and like all this stuff. And the characters were all kind of real, but then would morph into these really creepy versions of themselves. And I was like, this feels like I'm doing acid. And my son's just watching this thinking it's normal. And I'm sitting there like, I can't do this anymore. This is going to break my brain. It was so weird. The future's going to be strange.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you.
This podcast is brought to you by Reinteractive, where we help organizations design, build, and maintain software systems that stand the test of time. If you're a technology leader thinking about what's next for your platform, your team, or even your career, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Technology for Humans, and we'll see you in the next conversation.